To help put down the uprising there. The two countries are close allies, and now a senior Obama administration official is telling Fox News the commander of Iran's elite special forces unit visited Syria, suggesting a high level of military cooperation between the two countries. This is very pertinent given the conversation about what's happening with Iran and the development of nuclear weapons, because if they're supplying other countries with tools and tactics now, what could happen if they have nuclear capabilities? Congressman Peter Welch is the chief deputy Democratic whip. He also just returned from a trip to the Middle East where he met with leaders there about Iran. And let's just start there, Congressman. What was the reaction? What is the conversation in the Middle East regarding these movements by the Iranian regime?
Well, I'd say three things. First of all, there's widespread concern, despite even with political differences in the region, that Iran is dangerous, that then having a nuclear weapon is extremely dangerous, that their provocation in these other countries like Syria is very dangerous. Two, there's strong support for sanctions. But three, there's great reservation and caution when it comes to the question of using military force, with some apprehension about what that would unleash in the Middle East.
And can you be more specific about that apprehension? What specifically are the countries worried about? And I assume they're worried about a strike coming from the United States or Israel. Is that
right.
Kind of the concern?
Right. Well, yes, they don't rule out military force, but if you're Qatar, where you're 50 miles across the Strait of Hormuz, they feel that they will be on the receiving end of any retaliatory response. Turkey is very concerned about the loss of access to natural gas that heats their homes in the winter. The UAE, which is a strong U.S. ally, likewise is a very proximate neighbor and fears what would happen to it with a response, and what happens to the sea lanes in their ability to export oil. So they know that if there's military action, it creates consequences that you can anticipate but not really fully foresee. So they're nervous about it.
Sure. A lot of people, even obviously stateside, are nervous about it as well. But how nervous are those countries about a nuclear Iran?
Extremely nervous, and there's a no good solution situation here, and sanctions, tough sanctions, I support broad support in Congress for them. There's more talk here about using a military option or laying that out there, but even if there's some criticism about the limitations of sanctions, I think all of us have to acknowledge the limitations of force and what the consequences can be. So this is a very tough situation that's got to be managed day by day, step by step. Frankly, I don't think Congress is in a position to micromanage. It turns into a political debate and one-upsmanship. We've got some firm commitment from the administration to use every power within its toolkit to try to keep Iran from having a nuclear option.
Let me go back to that point you mentioned just about energy availability in that region and overall, because that's a major concern about whether or not we have the oil supply in the global markets to deal with the fact that Iran could go rogue completely, shut down the Strait of Hormuz, or we have a military action with them in some way. I just got a statement here from Senator Lugar, and this is in relation to some breaking news this hour about the Keystone Pipeline, and he actually brings in Iran in his response to this report that the Obama administration is not going to allow the Keystone Pipeline to go through. He says, in the face of Iranian threats against oil affordability, the Obama administration once again is trying to blame Congress in the state of Nebraska instead of taking responsibility for American jobs and security. You know, what do you think of the timing of all of this, Congressman, and that concern about whether or not we have the fuel to go forward?
Well, that's a good political talking point, but the Keystone issue right now is not whether the pipeline will or won't be built. It's whether it will totally short-circuit the environmental review process and entirely short-circuit the Inspector General review process in the State Department about the process by which the environmental review is done. So the question is not whether Keystone will or will not happen, at least as far as the administration is concerned. It's about whether you're going to completely bypass the review process because of political pressure in Congress. And I don't think we should.
It'll be interesting to see if, again, we get this confirmed from the White House. That's what we're waiting on. So still working on reports at this time, Congressman. But interesting to hear your insights after such a trip. And we look forward to talking to you more about the Middle East and some of these issues in the future, sir. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Well, a lot of people thought it would never happen.